This one felt more confident all around. Like we pushed our boundaries as musicians, and this one I can listen to and not cringe.
Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Belgian Jasper. If this is your first time on the channel, hit subscribe right now.
All right, Tim, thank you so much for your time today. We obviously want to talk about the new TYMO record. Usually I talk to people in the lead up to the new release. The album, your album came out about a month and a half ago. That's also always fun to get a different perspective. Weird, I assume, releasing albums still in the world that we live in today. But how was that looking back? How different of an experience compared to your previous album?
This was, it's funny. We've been writing these songs for the last, okay, if we were to go back to 2020, we were writing them since 2018.
Yeah.
And then we were perfecting them, playing them live, and then right at the end of February, we decided to finally go into the studio. We got the drums done, and right after we got the drums done, everything shut down.
Yeah.
So we waited for a bit, and then they lifted some restrictions when the summer came. Then we got the rest done, and then we waited for a bit again because like we might as well sit on it until shows come back. And then shows kind of started coming back in 2021. So we're like, okay, well, we'll release it in early 2022. Then Omicron came. I was like, We stuck with the release date for the album in early February, and we're gonna celebrate the release at our hometown in Edmonton in May. So hopefully a new variant doesn't mess that up. But we'll see what happens.
For sure. Now there's on the album there's definitely a bit of a rock and roll vibe to it, but at the end of the day, this is pure thrash metal. There's a lot of bands that are trying to do a lot of things and combine a lot of things. You guys play straightforward thrash metal, I would say. To me, I hear influences from bands like Destruction and Forbidden. I know that you've mentioned before that by touring with other thrash bands, that definitely influenced the sound.
Yep.
Do you agree with that? Do you hear some of those, quite legendary bands that have very specific sounds coming back in the new album?
Most definitely. Like we all listen to those bands. Like I'm not surprised that they rubbed off. And even with the rock and roll kind of sound, we do like stuff like Sabbath and old 70s rock, and we jam Led Zeppelin sometimes to warm up. And yeah, it's not surprising some of that worked its way in. I think it was some of that stuff was more obvious on our last album, Purge Reset. This one definitely more thrash metal, and probably even with the next one, it'll probably be even more technical. But we'll see what happens. But
okay.
No, that's cool. Thanks for the compliment there. That's awesome.
No, my pleasure. Now, I'll be completely straight with you. I actually only discovered your band with the current release, and I went back to your previous albums to dig into the back catalog, and you already hint at it, and that's very true. There's quite a change or an evolution in the band now obviously the previous album is now 5 years old or almost 6 years old. I know we're getting old. On many levels, this was more than one step forward. Is it fair to say that on this album, TYMO found its own voice, and quite literally you as a singer as well found your own voice?
Thank you. This one felt more confident all around. Like we pushed our boundaries as musicians, and this one I can listen to and not cringe.
It's definitely compared to your previous album, where I thought it was not as cohesive maybe, or not as balanced as the current one is, and that's why I feel like there's a bit more of an identity now that you can build on, and I think your vocals play a big part in that, where vocals seem to be is one of the instruments, not something that stands apart from it, if that makes sense.
vocals it takes time to find your voice. Some people find it right away. Like when you start singing, you want to imitate someone. Like you want to sound like Dave Mustaine, you want to sound like James Hetfield. And
right.
This one, I feel, this one is my proudest vocal moment so far.
Is it weird or funny for you as an artist and a writer to see how some of those serious songs that tackle anxiety, mental health issues, and so on, that even though you wrote them before the pandemic, for a lot of your listeners are probably more relevant today than they've ever been, because everybody, no matter who you are, where you come from, so on, has had to deal with some of those issues, right? Is that interesting to see how like a song can take on its own life and become more relevant over time?
Yes, this is a perfect example. War Beneath the Skull, for example, the lyrics for that one, that's about depression, anxiety, and bipolar disorder. That one was written in 2018, before like all this COVID stuff and all the stuff going on in the world. What's another song? All these lyrics are actually written like 2019, 2018, and then pandemic hit. It's like, whoa, this is more relevant than ever. Like Age of Deception, that's about social media addiction, and I think we were kind of forced to do that over 2020. We had to be on our social media more, and that seems to be the only way these days that people stay in touch. Like people are reliant on it. So yeah, these songs definitely more relevant than ever, which is weird. Age of Deception!
Yeah. Now, obviously, to really see how your audience reacts, it's great to see that there's, good feedback on songs that you put on YouTube or that are available through streaming and so on. And that's all great. But at the end of the day, a band like TYMO wants to see that reaction, in real life, and see how people react in shows. You said it yourself, in Canada, we've opened up a bit, we've closed down again. We're opening up again now. Shows are happening. You've got your release show planned. Tell me a little bit about what the fans can expect and what some of those plans for the band are.
Right now we got a few shows coming down the line within Canada. We're trying to plan a possible tour for near the end of the year. We'll see what happens. Like everything's so up in the air, everyone's afraid to jump or not. But we're gonna start with these few shows this summer and see where that goes. And we want to try to get over to Europe at some point. We're hoping either late this year or early next year. We'll see what happens again. And we're just gonna continue promoting this album.
One of the shows that you will be playing in Canada is the Loud as Hell Festival. That's a show coming up with a lot of Canadian bands. And there's, in the last few years now, across, let's call it retro heavy metal, speed metal, and thrash metal, categories that are all pretty closely, tied together. There's a real new Canadian wave happening right now. You guys are part of that. Hyperia from Calgary just released a killer new album as well. We've got bands like Striker who've been like showing the way a little bit longer than that, but there's a lot of stuff coming out right now across Canada, which is pretty cool to see. Does it feel because it sometimes looks like that from the audience perspective or the interviewer perspective, but as a band, does it really feel like a quote-unquote scene? Like, is there good engagement between these bands?
Yes, amazing engagement. Like, I don't know, I just feel like everyone loves thrash metal, and it just feels right. Like, that's how I feel as a fan, too. Like, you have bands like Hazard and WMD, and, of course, Hyperia, and Rising Sun. I got to think, like, of a bunch of thrash bands, like, off the top of my head in our scene, and phenomenal talent, and I'm always blown away to watch. Solid bands right there.
Yeah. Is it you kind of, you know, you alluded to it, like want to do a bit of a tour through Canada. It's been, for Canadian bands, it's not easy to get out of Canada and to get that recognition outside of Canada. But then when it starts happening, the funny thing that we see now with a band like Unleash the Archers, who probably are the flag bearers today for Canadian metal, or at least non-extreme Canadian metal, who then, you know, can play on festivals in Europe, but in Vancouver still only play in a small venue. What's your experience with that kind of, like, you know, having to play the local circuit over and over again, and not really seeing that picked up in a larger way in Canada?
I think it's a matter of, I think the easiest thing to do with that is you got to take the jump and go to Europe, especially if you're playing metal. Because once you get over to Europe, the touring becomes a little easier. Like, everything's closer together.
Yeah.
Like, you can just try to rent backline and rent gear. It's probably harder than it sounds, but that's kind of our thinking. And then with Europe, you make an impression, you come home, and then maybe do Europe for the next little bit, and hopefully that kind of just starts spreading. You can get over to Japan or Australia or the States even.
Yeah.
But I think starting with Europe is a good plan. But it is true, it is hard to jump out of Canada.
Tim, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And I wish you all the best with the continued promotion of this album.
Thank you. I really appreciate your time, and I really enjoyed talking to you.
You are awesome for watching this video. Click right here to see more content like it and subscribe to the channel.